Hello, I'm Joshua Gillespie, and welcome to JG Reviews, and welcome back to Sonic Month, everyone!
Whoa. What is this?
It's the Sonic Month intro.
I know what it is. I want to know why you're showing it.
I was just making a reference to my old episodes.
Josh, nobody watches your old episodes.
What?
The crappy video quality, the unbearable length, and I'm barely in most of them.
I know. That's why I like them.
Go back to normal.
Fine. The reason I was referencing Sonic Month, though, is because the game we're reviewing today was originally intended for it.
Really?
Hello, I'm Joshua Gillespie, and I play the part of Joshua Gillespie on JG Reviews. Yes, this review was originally intended for my Season 1 Sonic Month, but unfortunately, due to time constraints, it had to be cancelled. Also, I had to combine my Sonic 4 and Sonic Generations reviews into just one big finale. But those weren't the only changes that were made. Did you know that Sid wasn't my original sidekick?
What?
Yep, that's right. Originally my sidekick was going to be...
No, it wasn't.
Yes, it was.
Are you serious?
Yes, I am.
Oh dear God.
Originally my sidekick was going to be our friend Wallace. He was supposed to appear in my Sonic 2 review when I was talking about Tails being a good shield, but after we did some tests, we decided to cut the bit. But I think you all deserve to meet him.
You just insulted our audience.
So, Wallace, why don't you come over here and say hi to the audience?
Oh, hi everyone. It's a shame I couldn't be on the show, but Josh, I wanted to just tell you that these games you're reviewing are...
Thank you, Wallace!
I can't imagine why he didn't get the part. So Josh, now that you've wasted everyone's time, what Sonic game are we reviewing?
We're gonna be looking at Sonic 3D Blast.
Oh, that's easy. Terrible Genesis game. Goodbye.
Hold on, Sid. Now, you can be quick to trash the Genesis game, but how many of you have ever played the Sega Saturn version?
Well, I haven't, and judging by the system's lifespan, I'm gonna imagine nobody else did either.
Well, good. Then that's what we'll do. We're gonna be looking at the Saturn port of Sonic 3D Blast, and let's see why you should be thankful for it.
Great! First he ruins Halloween, now he's ruining Thanksgiving.
The story is nearly the same as it is with most Sonic games. Dr. Robotnik is causing trouble. This time he's discovered that some strange birds called flickies reside on a quiet island in the ocean.
These birds are from a different dimension. A dimension of sight. A dimension of Sid. Sorry. And can travel between worlds. So of course, Dr. Robotnik turns them all into robots to help him search for the Chaos Emeralds. What else is new?
One day, Sonic comes to the island, sees what Robotnik has done, and plans to stop him by rescuing the Flickies across 7 different worlds. Even though it's a typical Sonic plot with Eggman and the Chaos Emeralds, having a reason for Robotnik to turn the birds into enemies and why they're so important, it's a nice addition. The game is played from an isometric viewpoint in a 2D environment and uses pre-rendered 3D sprites. Sonic must collect all of the Flickies and bring them to a warp ring in order to advance. There are 2 acts to each zone with a boss on the 3rd act. Each of the zones has a different gimmick, like spinning to destroy barriers or being filled with springs. The zones are Green Grove, Rusty Ruin, Spring Stadium, Diamond Dust, Volcano Valley, Gene Gadget, and Panic Puppet.
Seriously, I am getting sick of all these puppet references. 2 Muppet Halloween specials, Pinocchio, and now this. Your obsession with puppets is weird. What's next? Are you gonna start using puppets on this show?
I'm not even gonna touch that one. So, after you finish Panic Puppet, and if you've collected every Chaos Emerald, you go to have a final battle with Eggman. Speaking of boss battles, let's talk about them since
Joshua loves boss battles.
the bosses in Sonic 3D Blast are the following. Let's see. Egg Mobile, and the Egg Mobile.
Are you noticing a pattern here?
Well, each version has a different weapon.
Now there's something I want to talk about. The bonus stages. Because Sid Lowe. I never get to have any fun. Anyway, back in the day, something that the Sonic games were known for were the special stages, where you got the Chaos Emeralds. Now, depending on which port of Sonic 3D Blast you play, you have a different special stage. In the Genesis version, Sonic runs down a bridge collecting rings and avoiding bombs. It sucks. It's tedious and it seems like it goes on forever, and it's not difficult at all. But for the Saturn version, it's a 3D recreation of the bonus stage from Sonic the Hedgehog 2. It's a lot of fun and cool to see something that resembles a regular Sonic game.
Overall, the gameplay for the Saturn version is just better. It's less clunky and it's a lot easier to maneuver.
But here's the problem I have with both versions of the game.
I know exactly what you're going to say, Sid.
Sonic doesn't move fast enough.
And while that is a good point, here's the thing. Many video games have broken away from their standard gameplay and people still like them. I mean, Zelda 2 was a side-scroller and... bad example. Metal Gear Solid 2, you play as Raiden and... You know what? In most cases, when a game in a series breaks from its regular style, people get mad about it. But just think about this. Think about the world you're playing this game in. I'll discuss it later, but if Sonic was running at his regular speed, he'd be bouncing off the walls like a pinball. And we already have that. The game does have the Speed Shoes power-up, and it helps prove my point that Sonic didn't need to go fast in 3D Blast. Oh, I'm sorry, I just felt like rhyming. Now let's move on to the presentation. Well, first of all, the Saturn version's graphics are much nicer than they are on the Genesis, which is understandable. The opening cinematic is actually something worth looking at. It's not just a blurry, pixelated mess. Everything has a nice shine to it, and some levels even have weather effects. Something both versions have is damage on the bosses. It really makes you feel like you're destroying it, like you're bringing it pain. As for the soundtrack, the Saturn port is a huge improvement over the Genesis. Honestly, when it comes to the Saturn music, this is something I wouldn't mind having on my iPod. And as Sid mentioned earlier, the special stages are also superior. Just like the gameplay, the Saturn version is better. There's one problem that the Saturn version has that the Genesis version doesn't, and it's really a problem that plagued the system overall. It's the loading screens and loading times. Seriously, there is an overabundance of these things, and they go on for what seems like forever. But honestly, that's the only problem that this game has that the Genesis version doesn't. Now, let's talk about something that we haven't in a long time. Sid? Sid?
This game has cheats! Hallelujah! Yes, 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 yes. Both games have only one cheat, a level select. For the Genesis, at the start screen, press B, A, right, A, C, up, down, A, which spells Barracuda, for whatever reason. Then press Start. The level select menu will appear when you begin a game, and then you can skip a level by pausing and pressing A. For the Saturn, simply hold C and press Start on the main menu. Then pause the game and press any of the following keys. A to skip to the next act, B to skip to the next stage, and C to skip to the final boss. Maybe they don't have a lot of cheats, but they can certainly help since the game lacks a save feature.
So, overall, what do I think of...
Wait, I have one last question, Josh.
Yes?
Why was Sonic 3D Blast released for both the Genesis and the Saturn? I mean, in North America, they were released on the exact same day.
Well, let me explain. I just wanted to point out that Sonic 3D Blast was never released for the Genesis in Japan. The reason it was released on the Saturn was to make up for the cancellation of Sonic Extreme, which was supposed to be released for the holiday season of 1996. People were angry because they didn't get the killer Sonic game for the Saturn that they were promised. But how do you know that the game was going to be a huge success? I've said this before and I'll say it again. Sonic Extreme, despite what many people believe, wouldn't have saved the Saturn. It's a good system, but it just didn't have the massive library that Sony and Nintendo had. That's why games like Panzer Dragoon and Knights go for such high prices these days. Looking at the footage of Sonic Extreme, the gameplay, albeit it's at an early stage of development, doesn't look too fast. So would Sonic fans have hated that game too? If you want proof, just look at Sonic Lost Worlds for the Wii U. Looks a lot like Sonic Extreme, doesn't it? And what was something people complained about? The speed. It's hard to have players go fast in a 3D platformer and make it work. In most cases, the players will spend a lot of their time just crashing into walls, which is a problem recent Sonic games have faced. In a way, Sega really shot themselves in the foot when they came up with this "gotta go fast" gimmick. People are quick to judge it simply from what they've heard about the Genesis port, without ever trying the Saturn version. And it's a shame because on Steam and for compilations, they always use the inferior Genesis game. So, is Sonic 3D Blast for the Saturn an amazing game? No, but just because the Genesis version isn't good, people seem to think the same of the Saturn port and automatically give it the same amount of harsh criticism, which it definitely doesn't deserve.
That was beautiful, Josh. I'm sorry, I need a moment.
Sonic 3D Blast for the Genesis had a lot of problems and the Sega Saturn version fixed a lot of them. I got my copy online for $3, and it included not only the box, but also the manual. The back of it has a sticker that says $25. Now, I wouldn't pay that much for it, but if you can find it cheap, I suggest you purchase it. You might enjoy it, because I certainly do. Despite what people say, I think Sonic 3D Blast deserves some time in the spotlight. But the Genesis version, that can stay in the shadows. Now, on the next episode, we're going to be looking at the newcomer of the 5th generation of gaming, the Sony PlayStation, with a game that revolutionized the way we play without you even realizing it.
You're gonna want to catch that episode.
Very subtle, Sid. Anyway, until then, I'm Joshua Gillespie.
And I'm Sid.
And we'll see you all next time on JG Reviews.
Now don't you escape.
Damn it, Sid!